الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه متابعين إحسان إلى يوم الدين. This is the second session for the mentorship training program for the new Muslims. We covered several topics last lesson, and this is lesson number 2. The very, very important point of the mentorship program is to build spiritual resilience with the new Muslims. And that's by teaching them the importance of sincerity and patience. And the word sincerity means in Arabic ikhlas, and that means ikhlas al-ibadah lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's really, we really have to tell them and train them over a period of time, not immediately or abruptly, that every form of worshipping must be devoted 100% to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, this may appear obvious in the beginning because that's probably what they inherited already from their previous faith, whether that's Christianity, Judaism, or Buddhism, whatever. But we also have to expand on the concept of ibadah, worshipping, that it is not only the formal rituals, including salah and fasting, siyam, Hajj, Zakah, etc., but it does encompass the global meaning of ibadah, which is, according to the scholars, the definition of ibadah is any act that is meant to be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any form of act that's meant to be for pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is considered ibadah. And that includes thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every type and form and shape of blessings that He bestowed on us, whether it's clothes, housing, cars, family, offsprings, intellectual ability, education, money, anything and everything that we own in this life is considered bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deserves to be thanked and praised for it. And that includes the verbal expressions of thanking, praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our tongue loudly, or it can also include appreciation and gratefulness that we should really train ourselves to have in our hearts at all point of time, at any point of time. This is the word sincerity. That's what we mean by the word sincerity. So that does really take time, but we can always train them to encompass, internalize that sense of praising and thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at any point of time. And we can have them also report to us on their own wording. How did they experience that sense of praising and appreciation and gratefulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from time to time between meetings? Also, that we should really teach them the concept of patience, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us in this life for a purpose. One of the purposes is really to test our level of patience. And patience should be in multiple forms. Patience for the hardship that we encounter on a daily basis. Patience with shortage of money, shortage of family, calamities and accidents that may happen. So this is really a reactive form of worshipping, patience, or we can also train them and inform them that patience also includes patience with the effort and time that you spend in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It takes patience to stand up, go to the bathroom, make wudu, stand in the prayers, or when Ramadan is coming, so we have to really to train them and condition them before Ramadan that it will not be a pleasant time during the fasting time, during the day. So you should be really prepared for that from now. So preparing them for patience is very, very important. And we always should tie the concept of patience in their mind to the ultimate reward, ultimate prize, ultimate winning at the end in the hereafter. So this is in psychology called the delayed gratification concept. So this is really very, very important. Any thoughts before we move to the next point? The next point of your mentorship is really to address the common challenges, doubts that may come to their minds after embracing Islam. Of course, does Allah exist? And if He does, then where is He? And why you cannot see Him? Why you cannot feel Him? All of these are challenges and doubts that will come to their mind. And your role as a mentor is really to address them. And of course, inshallah, we'll be addressing this one by one in our training. It will be continuous training, question and answers about them. Also, the common pressure, peer pressure that they will start feeling. When they refer to Islam, it is known that they will feel odd, they will feel alone, they will feel weird, black sheep, as we mentioned. And the peers will exercise pressure on them. They will tell them that, why did you take that religion? This is a religion of terrorism. I'm sure you all have heard about this because of the Islamophobia in the media. So we have really to condition them that it's not necessarily to be among the common as long as you feel strong about what you believe in. And also bring the sense of the global Muslim community to them. Yes, you may be one of 10 Muslim in your work group, but you are part of the global Muslim Ummah. That's more than 2 billion worldwide now. And you are really one of the fastest growing religion on earth. You should always consider this to be a big merit. So it is really our role to make them feel that they are not alone. They are not odd. They are not single. They are not black sheep in the herd, but you are part of a larger group that's the Muslim Ummah. Any thoughts on this point before we move on? Point number 3 is inspiring self-reflection and personalized growth. What does this mean? It means that you really ask them or motivate them to spend moments every day for the self-reflection. Self-reflection meaning they sit down and they reflect on their faith and what they believe in. And there's also another point of really inspiring them to look at the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around them and start appreciating it and start thinking about how glorious Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His creation. It's mentioned in the Quran, وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ رَبَّنَا مَا خَلَقْتَ هَذَا بَاطِلًا سُبْحَانَكَ فَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised many times in the Quran for those who sit down and ponder and think about His creation for the purpose of glorifying Him and glorifying His power to create such a great universe around us. That also can be inspired by them. As a matter of fact, this form of ibadah, form of worshipping, that's kind of diminished or distinct from our time now. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ used to perform this type of ibadah at-ta'ammul, ibadat at-ta'ammul, ibadat at-tafakkur. The form of worshipping that includes sitting doing nothing but thinking and pondering about the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around us and how magnificent that the creation is. And that entails glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His power and in His magnitude. We should always inject that in their mind and inspire them to do it. Number 4 is to encouraging consistent act of worship, goal settings and tracking sheet. When I've been doing this halaqah lessons for young Muslims for years, alhamdulillah, and I did find the tracking sheet is very, very powerful tool. I will present this at the end of the lesson, inshallah. It's a very simple. It's a sheet that they can track their act of worshiping. So every day they will record how many minutes they were late for the Fajr prayer, Zuhr prayer, Asr prayer, Maghrib prayer, and the Isha prayer. And then that gives them the daily score average. And then at the end, that gives them also the weekly score average at the end of the week. So that way they are always tracking their acts, which is known as self-assessment, al-muhasaba. It's also very important to build that in their mind and also have them set up goals for every week. I always asked the young adults in my halaqah, what is your goal for this week? One of them will say, for instance, my goal is really to read at least one page of the Quran consistently every day. I ask them to record it. And another say, my goal this week is to pray Zuhr Sunnah prayer before and after Zuhr every day. I ask them to record it. And then at the end of the week, we all gather together and then everybody present their results of the preset goal the week after and set up another goal for the upcoming week. This is really very important to keep them on a check and to keep their actions always as part of a SMART goal, SMART goal. We'll talk about the SMART goals. I'm sure most of you know about the SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So that way, each one of them is holding himself or herself accountable for their actions. That sense of accountability is really great to start building with them. Also consistency. Some of them may come to you and say, I'm really very motivated to read 10 pages of the Quran every day. I said, well, wait a minute, how many pages have you been reading? Well, I have not, but I'm gonna start really hard on myself, 10 pages a day. I said, no, that's too much. That's too much. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, إن هذا الدين عميق فأوغل فيه برفق. The Prophet ﷺ said this deen, this Islam, is deep and dense. And therefore, his recommendation, the Prophet's recommendation to each one of us is really to indulge in it, to start really practicing little by little. So it is really very important for you when you mentor the new reverts is to ask them to do a little bit of action, but make it consistent, make it steady. And we spoke before about the psychologist that said that anybody that wants to build up a habit, they must do it for 21 days consecutively. You should really teach them that way. Just to pick up one act. Sunnah prayer for Maghrib, for instance. And insist on praying Sunnah prayer for Maghrib for 21 days. Automatically, it becomes part of your habit. You will not lose it anymore. And then add another one after that, etc. So it is really very important to encourage that consistent acts of worshiping.
Brother, Salam
Alaykum salam.
Did you say that there is a tracking sheet available today? You have one?
Yes, I do have one, and I will share it with you at the end of this presentation.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep. That will be important. Consistent.
Yeah. It is really very important, and I did actually introduce this to mass Muslim American society, and they did adapt this tracking sheet. It really goes into phases. I'll explain it, inshallah, in that section.
Inshallah.
Any other question about this before we move to the next slide? Any other thoughts? I hope this is interesting and you guys are not asleep or wondering.
No, it's good. I'm watching. So I maybe missed the first minute. Those 4 steps are part of what exactly?
So this is really regarding building a spiritual resilience. So this particular 4 steps are about building spiritual resilience.
Okay, so being patient with the worship and so on.
Right, exactly. It's anything related. So when we say spiritual, the word spiritual means the relationship and connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How to build up this. This is really very important.
Yes. No, it's good. Thank you for sharing.
Welcome. All right, the next slide is really very vital. I really need you to pay a lot of attention for it because it can make or break the continuity of the new revert into the right path. Look at this hadith. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول ما نهيتكم عنه فاجتنبوه وما أمرتكم به فأتوا منه ما استطعتم فإنما أهلك الذين من قبلكم كثرة مسائلهم واختلافهم على أنبيائهم. So the Prophet ﷺ said here, what I have forbidden you, avoid it. Period. Avoid it all. So any haram thing, avoid it. And what I commanded you to do, as much of it as you are able to. So in Islam, there are halal and haram things. We all know them. As, of course, a born Muslim or reverted for a long time in a status of being a mentor, we know what is haram and what's halal. The number of halal things and haram things are really very large. So if we ask the new revert to focus on all of them, it will become very overwhelming to them. What we should really focus 100% in the beginning is to avoid the haram points, unlawful things to do, and then gradually introduce the halal or mandatory things to do down the road. Let me give an example. If one of the reverts is used to drink before becoming Muslim, all right, and you started mentoring them, they confess to you that they still love drinking and it's really very hard for them to stop. And they started also getting to a habit of waking themselves in the morning to pray Fajr while it's too early in the day, during the dark time. What is the priority here? The priority is really to enforce, focus, empower them to stop drinking or to wake up for the Fajr every day. The question is to you. What do you think?
Praying Fajr.
Sister Jannah?
They're praying Fajr.
Anybody else?
I agree with that. So I know it's controversial or maybe against the concept you introduced, but I think the more he gets like of ta'at, he will avoid the haram after that.
Yeah, I think stop drinking is probably number one, and then the salah can come gradually.
Yes, that's the correct answer based on this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. It is really vital for you as a mentor to help them to stop their haram practice first, more than focusing on introducing the halal or mandatory actions. So in that particular example, the top priority is really to stop drinking. If they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, the top priority is really to ask them to stop this relationship or to convert it to halal thing, meaning get married. If they love pork so very much and they cannot get rid of it, you should really enforce and empower them to get rid of eating pork. Anything that's haram is really top priority. If they ask you that I cannot offer the 5 daily prayers in the beginning, it is okay to tell them you can offer 2 out of 5 or 1, and then consistently after 10 days or so add the second one, etc. It's okay to do that. But you should really focus on them to stop all the haram behavior and actions as a priority. This is really very important.
And also coming Ramadan here, also we should not enforce them to fast right away.
Yes. This is really very important point. Thank you, Brother Ashraf. We as born Muslims or have been practicing Islam for many, many years, it's really next to nature to us. I mean, we don't even think. But for them, it's really a struggle, especially the day is very long now. It's more than, 17 hours or so? So if they ask you, do I have to fast the entire 30 days? The answer is try your best, but it's okay if you miss 1 or 2 in between, but try your best as much as possible. That's the right answer. Even if they fast 5 days in the first Ramadan, that's fine. Plenty.
So from
it's
the hadith, yeah. So from the hadith, what is forbidden must stop.
Right.
What is ordered, do as much as you can.
Exactly. Exactly
So
right.
especially for the new Muslims, gradually,
Yes,
because they're not used to it,
right.
and that can really discourage them and make them stop and get bored, and
Yes,
they need a lot of support and community support also, and family support, which might not have in the beginning.
absolutely. That's correct. So our focus must always be on refraining, stopping the unlawful actions, the haram actions. And then the additional mandatory actions can come gradually.
Yeah, that applies also to hijab.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. That definitely applies to hijab. Many new revert sisters, hijab for them, for men, I don't think we really have the full scope of how they feel when they put the hijab on. We think it's an easy thing to do, but it is absolutely not. This is a whole drastic change of culture and attitude appearing in the community, and it is really not easy. It is really hard. We have to realize that. So what if a new sister comes and says, I really having very hard time wearing hijab? What should be your answer? Your answer is, that's fine. It's okay. No problem. Let's leave the hijab of the discussion for now. You can just continue your life as normal, and then we will address other issues down the road.
What do you say, Brother Majdi? What do you say about إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر?
Right, Shaban, this is correct 100%. And the salah will really mold your behavior to the right direction and etc. This come down the road, not in the beginning. When we reach that point, that salah will really deter us or guide us to the right path and guide us to avoid the wrong path, etc. That comes later, not in the beginning, probably not even in the first year. Comes down.
For new Muslims.
Yes.
Because culture-wise, I have heard this in the beginning. When I was young, actually growing up, someone who smokes, say, or someone who says, I can't stop smoking or stop the sin, and some sheikhs tell them, always pray, and then but don't, praying will تنهى عن الفحشاء. Praying will stop you from gradually from doing those sins.
That is a correct answer as well, because smoking, it is really haram by the majority of the scholars, but not all of them. It's not قطعية الدلالة, meaning it's not like alcohol or adultery or stealing or mugging or killing.
Yes.
These things are really like a clear-cut haram. But smoking, as I said, the majority of the scholars said it's haram, but not all of them. So it's not 100%. But alcohol is.
And some people also said, if they cannot fast, might as well not pray. And then Sheikh says, if you can't fast, it's difficult for you, but at least, but prayer is a must all the time.
No, it is must, and as far as fasting, it is also must. We all know that, but it just depends on the gradual priorities. You have to take it gradually. If you ask the new reverter to fast the entire 30 days and pray five daily prayers and stop all of the bad habits that they have in the past and start counting their money in the bank and giving the zakat, etc., that would become overwhelming to them. So now we have to really pick up the priorities.
Makes sense.
And the priorities should always to help them to stop the haram actions and behaviors.
I have a question.
Yes.
So is it different if I ask him to do something or to avoid something, or if he brings something and ask, okay, what do you think about it, like putting hijab right now or avoiding alcohol or so? He probably knows the answer, and he probably this is like mandatory or this is not allowed in Islam, and he asks your opinion about it, and you try to go like stepwise approach, like you mentioned. So what is the good answer for that? So if I know if from myself I will not go to him, I will go to in a stepwise approach. Okay, this is something you have to focus in. Then we build on and go from there. But if he brought it and he asked, okay, about something like that, and you think this is not the priority right now, what should you respond to him?
Okay, so this really brings up a very, very important point, and that is the difference between the fact or the knowledge and the practice. If you are asked as a mentor to a new Muslim, is the 5 daily prayer mandatory or not? If you tell them you can pray 3 for now, this is the wrong answer. You have to be very careful about that. You must tell them about what Islam is asking us to do. So you must say that the 5 daily prayers are mandatory for every Muslim. So this is the rule in Islam. You never ever try to hide the hukm or the rules in Islam for the sake of accepting them as a good friend or so. You must tell them the fact. And then when it comes to practice, you can ask them to take it gradually. So yes, 5 daily prayers are mandatory, but in the beginning, how many prayers can you do consistently? Ask them, always reverse the question, turn the table, ask them the question. They will tell you, well, I can do the Zuhr and probably Maghrib and Isha, because Asr, I will be driving from work to home. I won't be able to do it. At that point, you said, yes, that's fine. Let's start with that. So now you give him the 100% perfect practice, what we should do, and the practical practice that what he or she can do for the time being. So they always understand the rules in Islam, the hukm in Islam, and they always understand there is a gap between what they do and the real hukm of Islam. This is very important. In another sense, Dr. Bilal, you tell them that we are not perfect and we are not expected to be perfect in our behavior, but it is also expected from us to strive to become perfect.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. I think this is a good approach. Yeah.
Yeah. Any
I would
other?
also,
Yes, Iman.
I would also like to mention that we need to tailor the advice for dealing with the troubles as a new revert to their level of iman, because
Yes,
I know when I was younger, when I was going through troubles, everybody just said, believe in Allah, just trust Allah. I didn't have that level of iman yet. I needed to build it, and I think that would be a wrong way to deal with problems they're going through.
absolutely. And I'm not sure if I did mention my daughter-in-law. The story exactly supports what you're saying, Iman.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter-in-law, her name is Stephanie. She is American-Italian that was in the high school with my son. Did I mention this story before? Or I didn't?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so Stephanie is an American girl born to American-Italian father and Polish-American mother. She was in the high school with my second son, Ahmed. And they graduated. She went to university, that's all girls university. And 2 years later, after she started really looking for the truth, what is the right religion? Of course, coming from Polish and Italian parents, she was raised as Catholic kid. But she felt that Catholicism is really the wrong religion. And she started really looking for the truth. One of her friends said, why don't you contact Ahmed, that tall nerd guy that was sitting in the back of the classroom in our high school. She said, yeah, do you have his number? She gave her my son's number. And she called him. She said, my name is Stephanie, and I used to be with you in the classroom in the high school, and I just have some questions about Islam. Can I ask you? He said, yes, go ahead. So they started the conversation, many calls. And every time he feels like she started to accept Islam as a concept, she would say to him immediately, and that's by her narration, by the way. Stephanie's telling me that story. She would tell him, but Ahmed never ever asked me to wake up in the morning because I'm late or evening woman. I never wake up before 12 o'clock. That's really my starting time. So Ahmed replies back to her, my son, I didn't ask you to wake up in the morning. All that I'm asking you is just to think about God. Can God be one or two or three, etc. So he focused 100% on the Tawheed, monotheism, with her. And after he felt like she's 100% accepted that, then he started the other six articles of faith. And every time she tried to bring him back to the practice, and then she would say to him, for instance, I would accept everything you said, but I will never ever put that thing on my head. I'm not going to accept that ever. Don't even direct me to that whatsoever. I will. So Ahmed, my son, tells her, did I ask you to wear hijab? She said, no, but I'm sure you will do that. He said, no, I will never ask you to do that. Let's focus on the concepts, the beliefs first. And he continued with her on that line for a long time. Eventually, she fell in love with him and they got married. And Stephanie, on her own, wore hijab from 2010, alhamdulillah, until today, 2009 to be specific.
MashaAllah.
And mashallah, they got married, they have 3 girls. She wakes up the entire house, her husband, my son, the 3 girls, and her parents who converted to Islam about 5 years ago or so. So everybody prays Fajr at the same time.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah.
MashaAllah.
Great story.
So that really tells you that what are the priorities? The priorities is always the pillars of Iman, Creed, Al-Aqidah. First.
MashaAllah, Ahmed had a great mentor.
Alhamdulillah, MashaAllah, yes. Alhamdulillah. Now every Ramadan, MashaAllah, she insists on reading the entire Quran for the whole month. So she reads one juz. She used to be in English, but alhamdulillah, now she reads it in Arabic as well. Alhamdulillah, MashaAllah. Alrighty, let's go to the next slide. The next slide is about the piety, at-taqwa, the fear of Allah. As much as you are able and listen and obey and spend in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's the better of yourself. And whoever is protected from the significance of his soul it is those who will be successful. فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم واسمعوا واطيعوا وانفقوا خيرا لانفسكم ومن يوق شح نفسه فاولئك هم المفلحون. So we really have to introduce that concept of al-taqwa, piety, in their hearts, meaning that you as a new Muslim, you should always be on guard, always think and feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is observing you. And based on that, you take your actions and decisions. It's really very important to bring the taqwa every time you speak to them and your mentoring sessions with them. Building piety, because this is really the key to the rest of the ibadat and the right path to follow. Any thoughts on this? Alrighty. The next slide is about the conflict resolution and problem solving. Think about this. When they revert to Islam, it may seem easy for us looking from outside, but indeed it does really impact their soul, their heart, their mind, their behavior. As we mentioned earlier, they think that they are again children or the black sheep, or they are walking on a thin rope. It really makes a very imbalanced state, their mind and their hearts. So we really have to help them for this conflict resolution and problem solving approach all the time. If they come to you, for instance, oh, my workers are not talking to me anymore, and I feel my boss is really looking at me like very much down after I reverted to Islam, and I can't really take this anymore, etc. So what should be your approach? Your approach should always be the problem solving approach. Number one is identify the source of conflict and misunderstanding. It's really very important to have them state that and then rephrase it again. Ask them to rephrase their identification statement of the problem until it becomes crystal clear in their mind. And then approaching disagreements with wisdom and kindness. Then you can really bring your opinion to what you heard from them and what is the right approach, even if you disagree with them. Remember, we spoke about this, inshallah, we speak about it in much more detail, the difference between sympathetic listening and empathetic listening. Sympathetic listening means that you understand and feel the other party 100% and you agree with them 100%. Empathetic listening means that you understand the content, the core subject, and the feeling of the other party, but you may agree or disagree with them, meaning that you give them your honest opinion that may sometimes disagree with how they feel or how they think. This is really the honest approach. So always be empathetic, not sympathetic. Empathetic listening is really the key to the communications. Number 3 is find the practical solutions aligned with Islamic teaching, Islamic principles and values. Never ever give them a solution that's really including haram items, haram things to do for the sake of the end results. The concept of the الغاية تبرر الوسيلة or Machiavelli principle that means justify the end result is not in Islam. We don't really believe in that. So never ever budge to give them a wrong approach or shady approach that's mixed between halal and haram for reaching final halal Islamic results. That's not in Islam. The concept of al-ghaya tubarrir al-wasila is not an Islamic. It's a Machiavelli approach, does not agree with our Islamic values.
The goals
yeah. Go ahead, Shabbat.
That's what it's in English. The goals justify the means, or the vice versa.
Yes, the goals justify the means. Correct. I'm sorry, I said it the other way, but the goals justify the means is not an Islamic principle. It is not. It's against Islam. In Islam, the goals and the means must be Islamic. So the fourth point is really very important. A common mistake of the mentors all the time is that they try to be the ultimate authority of Islam. They try to always come up with answers for questions. They try to provide the Islamic ruling, hukm in Islam. Not necessarily. You're just an ordinary person who volunteered to become a mentor. And that means there are scholars that you can come back to and use them as a reference. And you should always train the mentees about this concept. So it is not expected that you always have answer for all the problems. It is expected that you say for 50%, 60%, 40% of the problems, I don't know the answer to this problem. Let me go back to get you a scholastic answer to this problem. Or let's both go to Imam ABC, sorry, and that masjid and ask him about the fatwa for this issue. If you can. If they are far away and they cannot go with you, you can tell them, well, I will ask Sheikh Abdul Hamid Al-Haddad, for instance, or Sheikh Dahi Saeed, or Sheikh Hamdi of the Islamic Society of Greater Kansas about this issue, and then I will bring the answer back to you. So never ever imagine or think that you are expected to provide the whole list of answers for every question that they have. So these are really the 4 steps of the conflict resolution and problem solving. And any thoughts on this, ideas, questions?
Can you go over the first one when you were saying to, when you identify the issue, continue to, I guess, was it refine or to continue to go at the source of their issue?
Correct. So the first one is that you ask them to identify the sources of the conflict and misunderstanding. Basically, you ask them to state the problem statement, to list or to say the problem statement. Have them say the problem. All right. And if it doesn't make sense to use, then ask them to please, can you revise your thoughts one more time and give me a crystal clear problem
I
statement?
see. I see. I see. Exactly.
Yeah. So what you're doing, Rahif, here is that you're asking them to crystallize their thoughts, because most of the time the problem is big and they are overwhelmed with it. They don't know the source, they don't know exactly the problem, what it is, but they just feel that there's a huge thing really piling up in front of their eyes. But how can I solve this? Before we solve any problem, it is good training from you to train them to crystallize their thoughts about the problem statement. So ask them to rephrase it one time, two times, three times,
And
until
should
you feel that they are clear about it, not necessarily you. Make sure
okay.
that they are clear about the problem statement itself.
Is it counterintuitive to walk them through their questions, or let them figure out the source of their, or like to really pinpoint their source of confliction? Like
Always very helpful to ask them question to help them to identify the source of the
okay.
conflict.
Okay.
If you feel like you understand the source but they don't, or they still have 50% ambiguity, then ask them question to have them clarify it for themselves.
Okay. Okay. Understood.
If it just happened that you have like a background about where the problem is coming from, because you know their workplace or family or whatever, and you have a really clear understanding, but you feel like he or she does not have a clear understanding, then that is the right time to keep asking them questions to clarify it for them, for him or her.
I see.
Any other questions or comments? Alrighty, so I will stop the recording now.